Okay. Do a quick check-in with your body. And let your body know that you are listening to it. I have to tell you all something kind of fun, and in full recognition that it was totally made my ego very happy, but my favorite artist played at Mike's farm. I'll give you something to do while you're starting. Feet pointed straight ahead. Put your hands at your temples, bring your elbows all the way together and all the way back. And he found me on Instagram and wrote me a message yesterday. He has 270,000 followers, like something like that. And I got out of seeing a client and there was a message from him. And I was like, oh, little fangirl. He messaged me. It was pretty awesome. Anyway. Little ego spike. And who was it? His name is Nako. And he has a very interesting story of how he came to be in this particular body on this planet and raised by a family. He's Puerto Rican and native, and then was raised by a very Christian white family. And he's tattooed all over the place. Anyway, and he sings about challenges and good things and just where we are in this time in history and what we're facing as people are trying to figure out how to love each other and not fight so much. Feet pointed straight ahead. Check your feet, look down, and fold your fingers to touch your palms and relax. And then pinch your shoulder blades together. Bring your arms out to the side. Now let's squeeze your shoulder blades today a lot. Really hug like the top of the shoulder blade toward your spine and feel the muscle that's called your subscapularis, so under the scapula, that gets to also hold the shoulder blade onto the rib cage. Feel that muscle. And as I do that, I can even feel my whole leg wanting to adjust. So when we take the upper back into that much extension, we'll get some changes all the way down into the lower body. Take a breath and relax your belly, and then circle forward, creating that little wobble in your body. 40 circles. Release. Bring your palms up, squeeze, and circle backwards. Elbows as straight as you can get them. I'm noticing mine being a little bent. Push yours straighter. Keep squeezing. Hug to the midline of your body. Soften your belly. Yep. Your position of your arm can be anywhere that's pain-free. So if it needs to be down here, that's fine. Just find that. Maybe you find a new angle where the shoulder didn't quite squeeze. There's the shoulder blade can be in all different angles on your back. Keep going. Just put this down real quick. Change the light. The light was so beautiful this morning. So, yeah. All right. From there, go right into short foot. So take one foot and step it forward, but make sure before you step forward that your foot is pointed straight ahead. Can I get all the way in there? So back foot pointed straight ahead. take a step as if you were gonna take that step and then bend both knees. Make it so that the muscles that pull on the knee and the hip are lengthening, and then just hang out in that for a moment. That position, maybe you feel the hamstrings start to engage. Maybe you notice that up through your back wants to create some change into your shoulder blade or your head and neck. We could use this to change somebody's head position that maybe has a herniated disc or disc stuff in their neck. So even though we're doing something way down at the base, it can shift what's going on all the way up to the top. So from this position, bend the back leg all the way to the place where you feel the flexion is restricted. And then lift and press your toes on the front foot up and down. Lift them all the way up, press them down. And as you press them, feel the floor so that your whole underneath side of the foot activates. And maybe you feel it lateral hip or up into your glutes, hamstring. Find all those muscles up the back side as we pull on this whole line of fascia. Five more. Switch. Bend deeply into that knee. Take a deep breath. Again. And then lift and press your toes down into the floor. And come on up. First side again. Back foot pointed straight ahead. Step into that. This time lower down. Hold this position. So the position is just as important as the work. So be in this position. You're in a split hip position. So more flexion on one hip than the other, but still both hips in flexion. That's going to pull on the pelvis and the SI joint a little bit differently. Sometimes it can help unlock an SI joint if you have one side that moves and one side that doesn't. And then go to your hands and spread your fingers really far apart. And just like we felt all the way up into the hip with the toes, as you do the fingers, see if you can feel all the way up underneath the shoulder blades. Spread them and then make a fist. And as you make a fist, go into the grip strength. Grip strength is like one of the number one things we can measure for longevity in the body. So squeeze and find that grip and then open your fingers, pull them apart, make a fist and squeeze and spread them and squeeze. Switch. Bend into that space and just see. Now that you're in this the second time, can you bend into that back leg a little bit more? Working on that ankle flexion. So all those muscles that help you get to toe off in your gait when you're walking, they're working. Different layers of muscles need to slide and glide over each other. And if there's little bits of calcium in between them, sometimes it's like they should slide like this. And if you put a pencil in between it or bubble gum in between it, they stop moving very well. So you can just feel like how well do they slide and glide over each other. And then from there, spread your fingers again. Feel all of the muscles up underneath the shoulder blade. Now, many of us, right or left-handed people, that dominant arm shoulder wants to roll forward. And it gets tighter in the front just because we do so many more things with it, and changes the angle of the shoulder blade. So as we try to find that muscle in the backside, that subscapularis, by spreading your finger, you can even pull your pinky finger wider apart, and that will turn on the tricep, the back of the arm. That will help find, again, those muscles on the back side of the shoulder that help pull the shoulder into that better position and lengthen tight pecs or forward muscles. Then grip strength, squeeze, spread, squeeze, spread, squeeze, spread. Awesome. Back up to standing and interlace your fingers, flip your hands over, open your fingers, and then take it up, overhead extension. Let your shoulders go all the way up by your ears. Let your belly get soft and relaxed without your whole pelvis falling forward. So fully stretch, bring your ears back over your shoulders, and see if you can look up, hold it. How big of a breath can you take with those up there? And is the body communicating from the upper back into the middle back, into the low back? We're going to do this again later. So I want you to compare how it feels right now to what it feels like later. See if we have more communication through the whole system. Maybe it's already communicating for you, or maybe you have places where there's spots that aren't quite communicating. Go ahead and release it down. Awesome. Release. Onto your hands and knees, cats and dogs. Let's do segmented, articulated cats and dogs today. So start at the base of your low back and allow the spine to move into extension. So belly hanging toward the floor, all the way up between your shoulder blades. See if you can get your shoulder blades to come together so that they're moving towards each other on your back. And then head and neck can come up, lengthening the front of your neck. Move your jaw around, the sternocleidomastoid muscle that moves that jaw, all connected in that space. And then tuck your head, chin down, and then let the head slide forward. And then one vertebra at a time, start to go up toward the ceiling. From the neck in toward the middle back. And then as you get into the mid back area, your belly muscles are finally going to turn on, going into flexion, all the way up until your tailbone moves down toward the floor. See if you can just take a breath right there. And then lift your tailbone from the low back, moving down into that extension again, into the middle back, shoulder blades coordinating with your spine, and look up. And then down. And coming through, neck, middle back, thoracolumbar junction, right here where the thoracic back and the lumbar spine meet, to the tailbone. And then even the pelvic floor, see if you can squeeze the pelvic floor, lifting the muscles of the inside of the pelvic bowl up. And then let them go out. One more time. All the way through. Now take that into more of a circle. So your rib cage is going to come up and around in a circle. Just move that way. Find your own pace with it, loading one side and then the other. A few times one way, and then a few times the other way. And then coming down onto your belly. Stretch your arms out in front of you. If that's pain-free for you. If that's not, maybe arms out to the side would be okay, an okay position. Drop your left arm down by your side, so your right arm is forward. Left leg and right arm lifting up off the floor, and go ahead and lift them as far as your body wants to go. Using these muscles on the back side, finding the spine and releasing it down. Swim your arms around and switch. Lift, hold, and then you feel between your hip bone and your pubic bone, is your pelvis pretty flat on the floor, or does, as soon as you lift that leg up, does the lumbar spine just want to arch more and your hip bone dig down into the floor? If it does, see if you can make it more flat and use the floor to hold that as a brace so that you can actually find the butt muscles, getting the thigh bone to move up while the pelvis stays more stable. Switch. Lift. Release. 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 Excellent. Staying here on your belly, hands by your sides. Then lift your shoulders up and away from the floor. And just come up into a mini cobra. You could also have your arms out to the side if it feels better. And feel what happens as your vertebrae slide over each other. Now, some people have vertebrae that do this better than the other. The facets have to slide. The shape of the disc makes a difference for how your spine moves in this direction or rotates. But just feel, is it easy for you to move into that? And then release it back down. Excellent. Roll over onto your back. Extend both legs out straight on the floor, hands down by your sides. We'll go into cross crawls. So we went into hip extension. Now we're going into hip flexion. Keep your knee and ankle in line with each other. As you come up, you may feel the shape of your own hip socket. It may mean that knee wants to drop more toward the shoulder. That's okay. So you're going to go opposite arm, opposite leg coming up, and then set them both down. And then switch sides, lifting up and down. I'm going to give you a minute. Find your own pace. Keep going. Excellent. Bring your legs up. Go ahead and put the block between your knees. And I'm going to use my block not the widest way, but the second widest way that I can, just because that's about the shape, the spacing of my hips. You can choose, if you have more narrow hips, maybe you want the block to go straight up and down. You can decide. And then I want you to pull your ankles away from each other, wide, and then bring them back together so they touch 20 times. Out and in. So the muscles that you're using for internal rotation are actually out here on the outside of your hips and on the inside of your hips. So some adductors and some glutes help the internal rotation happen. As we find internal rotation, we also get the pelvis to settle. You could be kind of heavy on your sacrum or on the tailbone side of your back so that you maintain just a slight arch in your low back. If your back goes pretty flat to the floor here, that's okay also, because you're in this deep hip flexion. So just feel what your own body's doing. Notice if your shoulders are down to the floor or if they still want to stay lifted. Notice if your shoulders want to help you do the work. This is just a hip exercise. 19, 20, and then put the block at your feet. Hold on to it and take your knees wide and out to the side, and then bring them back together so they touch. Out and in. Do you have one side that wants to go out more than the other? You have different sensations in one hip or the other? We can use this to reduce the hip disparity. So if you have one hip that's in more flexion or going more posterior, tucking under, or one hip that's higher than the other, any kind of disparity can be because muscles in one side are doing something different than the other. So as we ask both sides to do the same thing, and we use the floor and gravity to help us just be level, then the true rotation can happen in the hip and the disparity can start to unwind. Awesome. Both feet on the floor. Let's go into some pelvic tilts. So after we've done those rotations, let's just go into, now the legs are stable on the floor, the pelvis is what's moving. Go ahead and rock your back flat toward the floor, and then arch coming up off the floor, down and up. Awesome. Back to neutral. Bring both knees into your chest. Now, as you do that, and you come as far in as possible, your pelvis is going to tip backwards. So your back will go more flat to the floor. And then extend your legs straight up and pull your toes down. Press your legs all the way straight until you get your thigh muscles to activate. And then bring them down, set them all the way back down. So we get hip flexion right to the place where you get a bit of a posterior tilt, and then extend those legs all the way up to the sky, pulling your toes down, working on that kinetic chain, releasing it down all the way to the floor. Good. All the way in, all the way up. Your low belly is going to activate here because you're starting to go into that flexion. That's okay. All the way to the muscles at the base of your abdominals, all the way to your pubic bone. Pull it in, lift, release, and lower. In, extend, down. Awesome. Now roll onto your side. You could put one of your blocks under your head. We're going to go back into shoulder work for a bit. So with your body kind of back at the back of your mat, extend your arm up to the sky, and I want your shoulder blade to protract and retract. So let the shoulder blade come down onto your back and then reach that shoulder blade away from you. And this is a Feldenkrais move. We're borrowing from Feldenkrais. Moshe Feldenkrais, also a brilliant body worker. Let that shoulder blade come down to your spine and back up. So that muscle we talked about before, the subscapularis, it's having to hold the shoulder blade onto the rib cage, and the rhomboid and mid trap get to hold down as the shoulder blade comes down, and then the serratus, this muscle on the side, lifts and brings the shoulder blade back up, down, and up. The traps are in there too. They start to rotate that shoulder blade. Good, now let the shoulder blade stay down onto your back, make a fist, and rotate your whole arm. So the rotator cuff, 4 muscles in the backside of the shoulder that stabilize the head of the shoulder, are getting to do their work as you rotate that arm in and out. Now combine the 2 actions. So let the shoulder lift and then bring it down like a corkscrew all the way down onto your back. All the way up, all the way down. And then just like foot circles here, do some wrist circles. You could do arm, hand out all the way if you want, that would be good. And reverse your direction. Forward and back, find all the different angles. Good, and then touch your thumb and pinky finger together and squeeze, thumb and ring finger, thumb and middle finger, thumb and pointer finger. And go back through the other way. Spread them wide, touch. You have bones and muscles and tendons in that hand that can all get funky, stuck, tight. You can feel it in that forearm. Excellent. Now I'm going to take the block away from my head. Bend your knees up more. Let your upper body open. So you're in a twist up to the sky. Full deep breath. Feel the twist. And then I want 10 little crunches right here. We'll do 2 sets. Let's start with 10. See if it feels okay. Crunch up, lift, using the obliques. As you lift your body up, try and get up to the edge of your shoulder blades and lower it back down. Lift and lower. Untwist and roll to the other side. Bringing my block with me. Taking that arm up. Bring the shoulder blade onto your back and then lift that arm away from you, finding the muscles that are from the arm into the shoulder blade, onto the back side of your body, opening these muscles in the chest, up and down. Protract and retract that shoulder blade. And then letting it go down, move that arm all the way in, all the way. Good. And then all the way up and all the way down. Nice. And then wrist circles. First. Find some kind of point and flex, all the different angles, forward and back. It'll be different if your hand is spread more. Yeah. Got some crunches in this one. Again, all of these muscles that operate your fingers are way in your forearm. So as you move this around, you're definitely going to feel that forearm activate. And then again, how well do those muscles slide and glide over each other so that you have range of motion. And then if these are working well, then it's much more likely that the shoulder works well. If these are stuck, then it's almost impossible for the shoulder to actually do what it needs to well. Okay, take the block away, open up your chest, allow your body to move into that twist. and then crunches, lift and lower. I said we were gonna do 2 sets, but then did we only do 1 on the other side?
Yes.
Yes. One was enough, all right. Excellent. All the way up. I'm gonna have you go ahead and reach over and touch the floor. We're gonna use that to put this back together a little bit. I realize that this is early in the morning. Please take anything that you need to make this comfortable in your body. If you need to bend your knees, make it a hip hinge. If you can do this easily and your butt is higher than your back, then go ahead and press your legs straight. But if your back is higher than your butt, then please bend your knees until you get your back to be lower than your bum. If you feel fairly flexible in this position, then do tighten up the thighs. We'll work the fascial chains all the way through your body and let it go over. Keep those thighs tight and just hang. So we can also reduce a lumbar erector disparity if you have back muscles that are pulling differently from one side to the other or are more developed. This can help bring it out if your pelvic disparity is still there. And ideally, when we go over, the position of our hips makes our knees start to turn outward as you go into this full flexed position. So just notice what's happening in your body. And then come all the way up to standing. Okay, do that standing overhead extension again. Feet pointed straight ahead. Oh, I just got a little dizzy. Interlace your fingers, flip your hands over and take them back up. Just notice how it feels. So when we're in a standing posture, our spinal muscles should be what are holding us up, and your abdominals should just be a tiny guide wire in that support, but not on so much. So notice if you can mostly release your belly. Look up. Let your arms go all the way by your ears, hug them in, take them back a little more, keep looking up. When we look up, we provide some slack to the nerves that talk all the way down to the base of the feet. Creating a better communication system all the way down. If you felt like you were more loaded on the right or left side before, is that feeling more even? And go ahead and move a little bit here. And release. All right, I'd like to do one more twist today before we start our meditation. So grab both of your blocks. If you have two, we're gonna do a revolved twist today. So let's start with the left foot forward and the right foot back. And you can have your feet more hip width apart, so not quite like they're on a balance beam. And first, just feel that position, legs straight, spine lengthened forward so that you're getting long. I can feel calf muscles starting to let go as this back foot goes into more flexion. That's changing up through my rib cage. And then here's the twist. So right hand stays on the block and you're going to twist over so that the left hand moves to the sky. Squeeze like you're holding a ball between your inner thighs, upper inner thighs, so that you have muscles hugging to the midline. That squeezing in of your legs will allow your spine to rotate more easily as you come up. And release. Switch your feet. Hold that position and breathe. So there's a spiral line of fascia through your body that goes kind of from the outer leg, cross the hip, cross your belly on the back. There's one in the front and one on the back side. So we're utilizing this spiral line in the body, opening it up. We did also with those crunches. We accessed that line. Now left hand stays on the block and that right arm. So squeeze upper inner thighs, squeezing to the midline, letting that twist. You may feel IT band, glute. Breathe. How is your spiral line today? Up into that shoulder. And release. One downward facing dog pose. Tie it all together. You may move in this. And then come on down, have a seat or lie down. You choose. Find your seat for your meditation or your lying down space. How many people have a bit of a mind storm when they come into this? Like, oh, I'm laying down to meditate, and then your mind gets really busy. Does that happen to anybody? Sure. I'm meditating. I'm thinking about everything I need to do today, and I'm meditating. I'm the meditator. So today, as we come into this, that's very common. And the more you can give your awareness or your focus to your sense of presence or your sense of being, the mind will often naturally settle. The more you focus upon the thoughts, likely you fuel the thoughts. So you can even change your focus. People would say, listen to the air conditioning system or something like that, but giving your mind something to do. But the more you focus upon your sense of presence, the feeling of aliveness that exists, the more your mind will settle just on its own. So as you go into this today, feel your physical body. Notice the senses here in the moment. And then give your attention to your sense of presence. And whatever arises is okay. Witness it, notice it, but don't give it your attention. And anytime you need to, bring the attention back to the space, to the openness. Breath also functions on its own. When you open to the sense of presence, all of the things in the mind and the body are included in that space. But they are not limited. You are not limited to the experience only of the physical body or the mind. When you give your attention to your sense of being, how big are you today? How vast is that sense? Before we move out of this space, you could simply ask, is there information for you? In the same way that when the pond gets still, you might be able to see the bottom. When we move into the silence, there's often information, instinctual feeling, a knowing that will arise that you may not have access to without this calm, still place. And also because we are powerful creators, if you have a picture in your mind's eye of something that you're moving towards, or a feeling that you would like to have, bring that into your mind's eye. A vision of something you want to be able to do that you can't do right now that you're moving towards, or even just peace in your body, peace in your mind. You can extend that into peace in your community. In your family. And then, because we are energetic beings, I want you to take 3 breaths today as we come into this with the image of light coming into your body with each breath. If there's anything that needs to be healed or shifted in your body, just breathe the light in. Let the light fill your physical body. You can breathe it in as if it's moving through straws in your entire system. You are connected to the source of this being. And you exist right here today. It's pretty amazing. You are a miracle made up of particles. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Namaste. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody.